are listening to the most comprehensive paranormal archive on the internet.
Welcome to a special Patreon episode of Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I'm sharing experiences, true paranormal stories from the web. And let me get to the file here, because since this is a Patreon episode, everyone who is listening to this on that website already knows about all the ways to support the show. So let me get to the file here, and I'll start. So this one says, once I scroll down a bit, that's a long one. Okay. This one says, this happened around 2001 or 2002. I was about 3 or 4 years old, and my older sister was 8 or 9. It was the middle of the night on Christmas Eve going into Christmas morning. To set the scene, we lived in a small ranch-style house. The living room opened into a hallway that led to the bedrooms, and every Christmas, my mom positioned the tree so it was visible from that hallway. You could stand there and see it glowing in the dark, lights twinkling. That night, I woke up suddenly and jumped out of bed, intending to run across the hall to my parents' room, which was directly opposite mine. But before I could make it there, I stopped dead in the middle of the hallway, facing the living room. Under the tree stood a man in a large red suit, placing toys beneath the branches. I remember feeling completely awestruck. He turned toward me, raised a finger to his lips in a gentle shushing motion, and smiled. I was suddenly embarrassed, as if I'd broken a rule by being out of bed, and worried that maybe, somehow, this would cost me my presents. So I turned around and ran back to my bedroom. What happened next is the part I still can't explain. My older sister suddenly burst into my room, grabbed my hand, and told me she had just seen Santa's sleigh. We ran to her bedroom window together and looked outside. And as unbelievable as it sounds, we saw the sleigh with tiny reindeer pulling it up into the night sky. And then it was gone. To this day, I asked my sister about this, and she remembers it. We both remember it vividly, but neither of us can make sense of what we saw. A shared hallucination? Some strange coincidence? I honestly don't know. My dad still swears the figure I saw was not him, and I believe him. The man I saw was old. My dad would have been in his late 20s at the time. Both of my grandfathers passed away before I was born, so it couldn't have been them either. An intruder? Maybe. But nothing was stolen, and that explanation doesn't account for what we saw out the window. I don't know what it was. But if anyone else has experienced something like this, I'd love to hear it. And if you have a theory, I'm open to that too. That's where that one ends. And every once in a while, I find a post like this, where people as kids saw what appeared to be Santa Claus. Now, this is the first time I've found a post personally. I have heard of it on other shows over the years here and there. But it's the first time I found a post where the kids, at the time they were kids, saw what appeared to be the stereotypical sleigh with reindeer going up into the sky. That is wild. It's one thing to see an apparition of a person, because beings, if they can change shape or appearance or project different things into people's minds, that's right there. That's right by them. Or, again, is this some sort of a thought form? The collective image somehow, or one version of it, of what Santa Claus would look like. And really is fascinating that they saw this, but also the sleigh and everything. Again, was that another apparition of some kind? I don't know, but I've heard a handful of accounts over the years, and read a few accounts over the years of people saying that they saw Santa Claus as a kid and know it wasn't one of their parents. Um, because in some cases it would just vanish after they saw it for a little while. It really is wild. So I don't know what to make of that, except people have had that experience. Moving on to the next one here. This one says, my girlfriend and I, both 29 years old, are currently staying at a motel in a town in Oregon. We are leaving today by 9 in the morning to head back to Portland. I feel like the Oregon coast is extremely haunted. In fact, I feel like almost all of Oregon is haunted, honestly. But this is the first time I felt dread staying in this motel, I'm sorry. I'm hearing scratching and tapping in the room, and I'm doing my best to ignore it. Earlier, I heard whispering, but couldn't make out what was said. My girlfriend is asleep currently, so it wasn't her. On the beach, back in August, we noticed a figure in white standing in the water at night. But we chose to ignore it, even though we could clearly see the figure was see-through. Like you could see through them completely. When we went for drives at night out here, we saw things we couldn't explain, and shadow figures out of the corner of our eyes. But obviously we didn't pull over to investigate. We are big on ghost hunting sometimes, but aren't crazy enough to stay in a place if we feel malicious intentions. Right now the tapping is increasing, and I'm doing my best to ignore it. I also feel watched. The thing is, we've stayed in this motel about 4 times since moving out here, and this is the first time we've encountered any strange activity. I don't know if this motel is haunted, or if it's only specific rooms, but given the Oregon coast's reputation, I'm not completely surprised by that, if it is. I just wish I could close my eyes and sleep like my girlfriend can, but I'm too scared. And again, I feel watched and a small sense of dread. Anyway, I would definitely love to hear your thoughts or experiences. Other than this, it is lovely out here, and we hope to come visit again soon. So that is fascinating. I wonder, and it probably is the case, when it comes to hotels or motels or things like that. I mean, if you think about it, that's a place where people can come in and stay and then go. Do either souls or spirits of people that have passed on, or other entities, other beings that are not even human, do they do that same thing? Except they just go there and they find a room and they choose it and they stay for a while and then they go. I'm really curious about that, especially since not Now, they didn't say, and I would guess it'd be hard to get the same room every time unless you really asked for it and scheduled way in advance. But I'd be curious if it was the same room or not every time that they stayed there. But yeah, I'm just wondering about that now. How often um, hotels, you have more coming and going than what people normally sense or experience or see. This next one says, I understand that most won't believe these things. I'm only picking the stories that I can't explain. This morning, I woke up to one of my plants from across the room being beside my bed. No soil had spilled, and it was perfectly placed 2 meters away from me. I don't sleepwalk, and I'm a very light sleeper. 4 times over the last 2 years, I have awoken to my bed shaking, literally rocking back and forth. It can't be an earthquake as I live in Ireland. And secondly, I'm 6 foot 3 inches tall and weigh 135 kilograms. I'm not easily moved like that. About 2 years ago, I was in my room with my girlfriend, and we could hear my housemate's Canadian girlfriend talking downstairs. I went down to find only my housemate. I asked where his girlfriend was. He said she wasn't there. Both my girlfriend and I heard her voice for about 10 to 15 minutes. I checked the whole house. There were no other women or TVs playing. There has been a lot of our crazy things both my sister and I have experienced since we were younger, but I don't think it's worth even mentioning, as people online wouldn't take it seriously. But after the plant thing happening this morning, I thought I'd share. And that's where that one ends. So it sounds like this person, to begin with, may have just been possibly born sensitive. Or they just, again, had the luck of the draw and managed to move from one place that maybe was haunted to another place that might be haunted. Sounds like there's just activity going on around them. I do find the sound, the voice of this person that wasn't there, but people still heard it. I find that fascinating in terms of, were they hearing that voice of that person from another time? But it's also odd because the person, the housemate that was there, whose girlfriend it was that was being heard, that was not there, they didn't say that they heard it. So I don't know what that means to any of this. But yeah, that's a fascinating one as well. So just sounds like a lot of activity there, but also possibly a very sensitive person. Possibly. I'd be curious about over the years if they had a lot more experiences in basically every place they stayed, or if it was just these 2 places. Okay, so this next one here, let me get to it on the document. This one says, when I was 11, I saw a glowing sphere floating through my street, and I still don't know what it was. For nearly a year, I had been residing in this small seaside town, tucked away between mountains and the sea. I was going to walk to the bakery in the early evening. With just 5 other homes and an empty lot directly in front of me, my street was a dead end. I froze as soon as I shut my gate. A white, spherical light, the size of a tennis ball, was slowly moving across the vacant lot. It wasn't flickering or bouncing like a flashlight. It simply glided. With ease, purposefully. I watched it as it rose up close to the power lines, perhaps 10 feet above the ground, and drifted out of the lot. It went all the way to the street's entrance, turned around, and followed nearly the exact same route before vanishing back into the vacant lot. Perhaps a minute passed during the entire event. The most peculiar thing is that I wasn't afraid, not even a tiny bit. What the heck is that? Was all I could think as I stood there. I was certain it was not a firefly or any other natural object I had ever seen. The movement was overly deliberate and controlled. Even though I'm in my 30s, I can still clearly recall every detail, including the color, size, and movement, as if it were yesterday. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. I still don't know what I saw that evening. And that's where that one ends. The movement is always fascinating to me. When it's not bouncing, it's not flickering, it's not acting like a bug. It would how you would think a bug or a fly would act. And I wonder if this person was picking up on the intelligence of this thing, if there was an intelligence, without even realizing it, and that's why the movement seems so deliberate, or if that's just the feeling they got from it. It's hard to say. And I wonder about the history of that vacant lot as well. I was almost surprised that the light didn't go up into the power lines in a way. But, so yeah, that's a fascinating one. And I wonder, again, was that a spirit or soul of some kind going about a routine? But then the person didn't see it any other times. So it's hard to say, but I've seen anomalous lights here and there, and it is always wild when you try to figure out what it is and try to rule things out, and you can't rule everything out. You can't. It doesn't seem like it can be anything like any kind of an animal, insect, or any kind of a craft or anything like that. And you're just left with, I don't know what this is. It seems like it's anomalous. So, really, really amazing when that happens. Looking at the chat here, Satya says, sounds like a bit like something my ex witnessed one night while she was hanging out around the mill I was working at. Okay, yeah. Lights are seen all over the place, all around the world. Inside buildings, outside buildings, in forests, up in the sky, out in space. And I don't know if they're all the same thing. I would really be surprised if they're all the same thing. But they're just in so many colors and shapes and sizes. So it's a fascinating subject to me. And whenever it comes up in these shows, I'm always glad because I've had experiences with them. And yeah, it's fascinating to hear more and more accounts of experiences with these lights. So, looking back at the chat here, Satya says, she said it went from pole to pole along a shoreline. Okay, yeah. So, yep, they do seem to be, people all over the world see these lights in all kinds of places. So, and sometimes it's just the light. Sometimes it's the light and then a sense of a presence with the light. Other times there's other phenomenon too with it. Images within the light in rare cases, sounds with the lights. So it really is a light and electricity and energy seem to be really common within all anomalous things. Let's see here. The next one says, well, I don't have a title or anything that would give me any authority on this, but I'll be as clear as and sensible as possible. This is posted on a forum, like I said, so I always say so. I've been doing my military service for a year, and I'm stationed in the mountains. I'm a person who always adapts easily and always tries to find a reason for everything. But what's been happening lately is something I can't find any meaning or logic in. Once, when I was on guard duty with a comrade, the guard post was far from the base, and the path there was completely overgrown with trees. Anyway, around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, when we had to check the guards, I clearly saw something peeking out from among the trees. I alerted my partner. We got into position, reloaded our rifles, and took cover. About 10 minutes passed, but the figure was still there. I got scared, and I saw my partner in the same state. We were sweating bullets. Our pulses were racing. We didn't know what to do because it was strange. I was unsettled, and I pointed my light at the figure, and that's when we saw it. It had white or silver eyes. It had long silver hair full of twigs and leaves, and I have no way of describing its skin, really. It was like a mixture of skin, mud, tree bark, leaves, branches, and strips of clothing. We were scared and wanted to run, but we couldn't because we had to make sure the sentry was all right, or at least alive. My partner fired the first shot, and that thing let out a scream that sounded like a dog's yelp. It suddenly ran into the forest. We quickly went to where the sentry was, and he was there, in a corner of the guard post, crying. When he saw us, he ran to us, hugging us and begging us to get him out of there. This happened a few weeks ago, and today that guard post isn't active. But when you walk through that corridor, you hear that squeal or hiss, and you feel like something is watching you from the depths of the forest. I don't know if she was a witch or something like that, but whatever she is, I know she's still there, watching us and waiting. I don't know for what, really. I just hope to get out of here as quickly as possible. That's where that one ends. And if you haven't ever looked into accounts from people that have in the military or law enforcement or uh, first responders that have had experiences before, that may seem far-fetched. However, there are many accounts of people coming across situations that they could not have possibly been trained to handle. They're encountering things that they cannot explain. And there are entire episodes of podcasts I've heard before devoted to military encounters. And so this does not seem any more or less unusual than some of the other accounts I've heard and read from people over the years. Again, despite the claims from friends, I am no expert on all this. Not really, at least in my mind. But I have heard and read a lot. But anyway, yeah, Satya said I've stood some pretty boring night watches. That's probably a good thing. Because, yeah. But anyway, going on to the next post here, the next true story here. They all started out as posts. And anyway, let's see. This one is a really short one. This one says, when I was about 13, I was sitting on the couch in my living room watching TV, and I heard a little girl's voice say, "Run." What did it mean? Was it warning me of danger? Was it trying to just get me to leave the living room? What did it mean? Any guesses? And that's where that one ends. It is always unnerving when you hear a voice that you don't recognize, that doesn't belong there, and there's no one there. And I think it's easy to sort of put meaning into that, and there could be in some cases, but also I think there's always options of what it could be. It could be that it was someone, but they weren't even talking to you as in whoever had the experience, and so it has nothing to do with you. But and I do think time anomalies can happen where people in different times in the same space can hear things or see things, see signs or hear signs of each other in that same space, um, and not realize that's what it is and think it's a spirit or soul haunting the place when it may not always be that. So I'm just wondering here, it doesn't say that the person had any other experiences, so yeah, that makes me wonder about just a random time anomaly happening there for whatever reason, however those are made or end up happening due to, I guess, environmental circumstances, factors that I'm not anywhere near qualified to try to figure out or describe. Moving on to the next one here. This one says, please excuse my grammar. English is not my first language. So we had a power outage for 2 days. Excuse me. This morning I got up for work in the dark, but I still had enough light to see. My clothes were hanging inside the living room on a clothing rack to dry because it had been raining a lot. So I grabbed one of my pairs of denim jeans. I only have this one in a specific color. I went to the bathroom, pulled the denim right side out, and then I decided I actually didn't want to wear them. I wanted to wear my leggings. So I hung the jeans over the bathtub and went back to the clothing rack. But the leggings weren't there. They were actually in the laundry bin because Thursday I got caught in the rain. I forgot they were dirty. I went back to the bathroom and the jeans, excuse me, the jeans were gone. I went back to the clothing rack and there they were, hanging on the rack. When I first got the jeans, they were hanging on the right side in the middle row. This time, they were hanging on the left side on the first row. Now I know for a fact I never once took those jeans back to the living room. I had actually planned that after putting on the leggings. I was going to hang the jeans over the towel rack inside the bathroom so that they would be there the next day to put on. I have to add that I've been watching some glitch in the Matrix videos, and I was immediately confused and just knew something happened. Also, my dad said he had seen a shadow figure walking to the kitchen at night, and he thought it was me. The married couple that lived in our house died here a few years apart of each other, and I joked and said maybe it was them, and now this happened. But if it was the ghosts, how did they get past me without me seeing? I believe it has to be a glitch, and that's where that one ends. So there's a lot of possibilities there, and the writer seems to have their idea of how it happened. I don't know that I can really say for sure one way or another. There's plenty of accounts of objects vanishing, and I don't think it's always a glitch. I think in some cases, somehow, in some way that we don't know yet, non-physical entities, whether it's spirits of people or not, souls of people or other entities, can somehow take objects and move them, and it can be they can be moved without people seeing them being moved. It seems in some cases. So not that I can rule out the whole idea of a glitch in reality of objects vanishing and reappearing without any intelligence behind these movements, but also I can't rule out the possibility of it being a actual haunting, so to speak, it being basically ghosts or spirits or souls. Especially with the shadow figure seen there, and yeah, so there's just if it wasn't for maybe this, if the shadow figure hadn't been seen there, uh, then maybe I might be more inclined to think it was just a glitch. But with the shadow figure there, it sounds like there might just be activity there in general. But I'll also be curious if anything else ever happened before or after that, to sort of get a better, possibly a better view of the situation. And it could have been two random things. It could have been a glitch in the Matrix, as the saying goes, even though I don't know that we're in a Matrix. I think there are just natural forces that sometimes, in some ways, can cause things to vanish and or appear, and or both. Or it could have been, again, paranormal, which I don't know if this is the same thing as a quote-unquote glitch in the Matrix or just a glitch. I'd rather just call them glitches because I don't know about the whole. I don't think it has to be a Matrix for there to be glitches in reality. But looking at the chat here, oh, I'm sorry. That's I already read that a little while ago. Okay, so moving on to the next one here. Let's see. This one says, I have some stuffed animals that I keep on my bed. Each night, I put them on the same spot on the floor, and every day I put them back on the bed in a specific order. Today I was making my bed, as always, and noticed that I had lost one of my plushies that had been on the bed the night before. I shook out all the blankets and made the bed before looking everywhere in the room, including under the bed and in between the headboard and mattress. After 10 minutes of searching, I gave up and figured I'd find it eventually, since I know it hasn't left my my room. I went into a nearby room to grab my water so I could place it on my nightstand and have it with me. When I walked around to my side of the bed, where my nightstand is, the plushie I had lost was right in the middle of the floor. I literally jumped back a bit in shock and honestly fear after seeing it. At this time, I'm home alone, so my first thought is someone is hiding in my house and messing with me. But I walked out of the room for a minute and came back, so that wouldn't make sense. I've heard a lot of stories of people finding things in places they know they didn't leave them or leave it. But I've always just figured that there had to be some sort of explanation. Knowing for 100% certainty that the plushie was not in the middle of the floor when I walked out of the room just a minute before is really starting to make me think. I'm trying to find an explanation, but I just cannot think of one. This is really freaking me out. What could possibly explain this? And that's where that one ends. Again, similar situation here. Objects vanishing and appearing. So many cases of this. If you go back and listen to this show long enough, you'll just find a lot of these kinds of cases. And again, I don't think there's always intelligence behind these movements, but I think sometimes there is. And figuring out the situation can be difficult. So I'm not sure what happened there. I know that to give an example of a case where I am 99% sure there was an intelligence behind something, there's this one time years ago, I was I had set my phone charger down on a chair because I have a lot of extra chairs in my apartment, basically enough for a group of 6 or 8 people to sit down and eat together. Though I hardly ever have company, so I'll set things on chairs sometimes. And I had set this phone charger on a chair, and then another day, and then I needed it, so I went to get it from the chair, and it was not there. I felt around the entire chair, looked around. It was not there. It wasn't anywhere. I couldn't find it. This was after I already had other activity in this apartment. And so I decided, well, I don't know what else to do. So I spoke out loud to whoever was here and asked for the charger, for help finding the charger, because if my family couldn't reach me, they would start to wonder what was going on and get worried, and they'd all be coming over here. And so I stopped looking around for a little while for the charger. Later on the same day, I looked around again for places, and eventually got back to that chair where it had been and where it had vanished from, and it was right back on that chair. And I know I had felt the chair itself, the surface of the chair, so it was not there. It's not that I just wasn't seeing it. And so, yeah, things can happen, and I'm not sure how that works. But again, I don't know for sure either that it was an intelligence behind that. Because I can't know, because I didn't see anyone moving it away or putting it back. Moving on to the next one here. This one says, so yesterday at 11:30 p.m. or so, my boyfriend and I were skating in an empty lot. A loud, clear, hey, the word hey, came from right between us. We both stopped dead and looked at each other at the exact same time. Nobody was there. No cars, no wind, no hiding spots. We didn't really see anything. We just grabbed our boards and bailed. What could it be? Ghost? Jinn? We're still pretty shaken up about it today. But we've been making stupid jokes all day. That's where that one ends. For anyone that has not heard of the Jinn, they are a figure, I believe, in the Middle East, similar in some ways to Fae or Fairy or Little Folk, but with their own different abilities and things, and sort of a common, that's thought to be a common cause for a lot of paranormal activity. And or it could be a ghost, it could be, again, it's hard to say. It makes me wonder, I could just see someone from maybe another time, or whether it's a living person in another time period, or just the spirit of someone who has maybe owned that lot at some point in time, and all of a sudden sees these two people messing around, and in their mind, messing around on it, just using skateboards, skating on it, and just wasn't happy and said, hey, like, get off of my property, kind of thing. But again, it's impossible to know without knowing the emotion, if there was any that they picked up on, just from that one word. It's really hard to know without an actual recording of what was heard. So, last one here for now. We'll do more later. Let's see here. This one says, weird things happen there all the time that I try to debunk and can't. Explain. I don't tell new hires about the experiences, so I can see if they have them too. I guess it's a workplace. And we won't just wind each other up, thinking there are ghosts when there aren't. The building is actually an old house. One of the original houses, or ones in my city, built in the 1800s. That's right. I forgot. I left out the heading somehow for this post. It did talk about it being a restaurant. Anyway, my mistake there. Things fly off the tables all the time, which I can just say is vibration from cars, or liquor bottles fall off shelves. But the way they fall is not just gravity. It's almost like someone pushes or throws them. I have heard a voice upstairs when no one is there and thought I saw coworkers walk into rooms and they don't actually end up being there. Things like that. What's weird is as my coworkers start training and working, they will express things happening around them too. Almost every new hire has had an experience there without anyone telling them it might be haunted. I also have customers who have weird experiences while they are dining. Same things. Utensils flying off tables and others. I have worked at many different restaurants in the last 15 years as a service industry lifer, and I have never experienced what I have at this particular restaurant. At least this helps me know I'm not in the habit of hallucinating or exaggerating situations. One day I was unlocking the side door from outside in the alley at 3 in the afternoon. It was quiet out, and I was just going about my business when I heard a young woman's voice say my name. It was not in my brain that it was said. It was said directly outside my ear, like someone was right next to me, but somehow very far away. It was clear as day. It was said as a question with an inflection, like she was trying to get my attention. My name is not super common, so the odds of someone saying it on the street, and I just happened to hear it, are very slim. There was no one around me, and no one outside. The door is so heavy you cannot hear inside the restaurant from outside. I have worked there now for 3 years, so this really makes me uncomfortable. I don't drink or do drugs, and I don't have a history of schizotypical, there we go, schizotypal, I'm sorry, illness in my family. This has never happened to me before, and it just makes me feel uneasy. I wonder if there's a girl there who was hurt somehow. I am a woman too, and maybe she just wanted a friend. Or I'm hallucinating, and that's where that one ends. There's a lot going on there. I do wonder with everything going on, is that all from that one soul or spirit? Is that what's happening? Is it one entity there, or is it the energy of that person, and or just the whole? I have family that runs a restaurant, and they're always busy, and they're always working, and it's always a lot going on, and I can only imagine the stress. I wonder if in some cases, the just the energy in a place and just the what's going on, the emotions can cause things to happen in certain places. So, but anyway, I think that'll do it for that one. So let's see about the next one here. One moment. Okay, on to the next one here. Make sure everything is still working. Yep, it is. All right, good. Okay, so this next one says, I was just in my bathroom getting ready for a shower. I was looking into the mirror, washing my makeup off, when I saw a blur behind me. I heard what sounded like a glass falling, and I turned around, and there was a small jar on the floor. This fell in the middle of my bathroom, It was nowhere near a shelf or anything that the jar could have been on. My bathroom used to be my little brother's bathroom, so my brain jumped to that idiot put a jar in the ceiling. But very quickly I realized I was the idiot because if the ceiling tile had gotten pushed up and moved, then it would probably still be open, and it very much wasn't. So I don't know. This is the first time anything like this has ever happened, and it's making me question reality a bit. And that's where that one ends. Um, Sometimes objects do materialize not just on the floor or on the surface, but in the air. Uh, there was one from, I don't even know, a few years back where a mother and their, at the time, child was looking for a slipper or a sandal or some kind of shoe for the child. And the mother had found one, but not the other. And the missing one materialized in the middle of the air, in the middle of the room, and then fell to the floor. So there are random things like this. I do wonder, and again, was there an intelligence behind this, or was there not? I don't think there always is. So it's really tricky to know for sure. And I say that because it seems like things, when people drop things, sometimes they'll even just go missing and vanish and then either reappear or never reappear. So I do wonder about that whole what of these experiences are caused by intelligent forces, whether they seem to be or not, and which ones aren't. Again, whether they seem to be or not. So moving on to the next one here. Some odd things have been happening at my house. About 3 weeks ago, on Sunday evening, I was reading in bed and got up to grab a drink of water. When I returned to my bed, lying on top of the bed, towards the middle of the bed, was a piece of cat food. Additionally, 2 weeks ago, the same situation. I got up and returned, and in the middle of the bed was a cat claw shed. Shed cat claw, basically. For reference, my ex and her cat moved out back in August. Is this a gift from a demon, my guardian angel, or some other entity? And that's where that one ends. I really have no idea. I'm wondering. It's odd. I'm almost wondering, and I mean, I can understand if the person didn't want to check with their ex, but did the cat pass away? And now this is happening because it felt some connection to this person? Or is it something else entirely? I have no idea. This one, I really don't know where to go with that, other than just that possibility as well. Based on experiences, though, it does seem like cats can teleport, so also who knows? And I say that may sound like a joke, but I've had a couple experiences, and I've heard of others with those as well, so just saying, throwing that out there as a possibility here. This will be the last one for this episode. This one says, I am a believer in the paranormal, but very skeptical at the same time. I put science first. I once visited a remote cemetery that was supposedly haunted in Union County, Kentucky, with a group of friends. I went in skeptical, jokingly, with no expectations, just having fun. As soon as we pulled up to the cemetery, I didn't even get out of the van. There was a muscular black panther type creature pacing back and forth behind a grave. We all saw it, but decided to get out a few minutes later. Once we got out, it disappeared, and we didn't experience anything further. I'm just curious as to if anyone else has had similar experiences and what you believe it is. I've struggled with everything from something demonic to Native American beliefs. It has haunted me for years, not knowing. And that's where that one ends. I don't know. I've heard of accounts of that before, of these certain animal type creatures, uh, and just showing up in these graveyards. So it's really odd when they are there and then they're just gone. It makes it seem like it's not a regular animal. So I don't know what that is, but again, that's not the first time I've heard of that. Not just in graveyards or cemeteries in the U.S., but it crossed over in the U.K. as well. So that's all I can say for that. Thank you all for listening to this Patreon and also Patreon preview episode of Salsido Paranormal, and I will talk to you all next time. Take care.